I never knew a chance encounter could lead to a life-changing decision. My heart raced that day, standing in the dimly lit café, the rich scent of coffee mingling with the musty air. I remember turning my head just as a stranger walked in. Something about him felt electric, a spark that charged the stillness. The bell on the door tinkled, pulling me from my thoughts. We locked eyes, and at that moment, I swear, time stopped. He had an intensity in his gaze, as though he could see straight through my layers of pretense. My fingers trembled, wrapping tighter around my cup, and my heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing in my ears. Who was he? What was this sensation suffocating the air around us? He approached, cautiously, as if he were stepping onto fragile ice. My breath hitched. The puzzle pieces of my life felt out of place, and yet here he was, moving through the clutter of my world like a force of nature. As he neared, the whispers of the café faded away, leaving us in a bubble of silence that buzzed with potential. Mind if I sit? He asked. His voice was husky, curling around my skin. I nodded, unable to speak, my throat suddenly dry. We talked for hours, our laughter filling the empty spaces, sharing secrets and dreams like we'd known each other forever. Each word wrapped around my heart, igniting sparks of hope I hadn't dared to feel in a long time. But then he mentioned a name, one that sent icy shards through me, a name so familiar it burned. My blood ran cold. Reality crackled. It was my brother's name, the one I had lost years ago, the one I had searched for relentlessly. Had this stranger come to unveil a hidden truth? Do you know him? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, laden with fear and urgency. His expression shifted, darkening like a storm cloud, and the lightness of our conversation evaporated. I saw walls rise up around him. Let's just say, it's complicated, he replied. The tremor in his voice echoed my own uncertainty. Could he be the key to understanding what happened? A moment of silence stretched painfully between us, thick with unresolved tension. My stomach twisted into knots. I needed answers. But the way he shifted, distant now, sent an alarming chill through my bones. The café seemed to pulse with a restless energy, spectators glancing our way, murmurs swelling around us. My heart thudded in protest. What had I stepped into? This chance encounter had turned into a labyrinth of questions, an unexpected collision with my past, and as I sat there, surrounded by the scent of coffee and unuttered secrets, I felt the ground beneath me quaking. What dark truths lay hidden? I leaned in closer, my breath hitching again. But just as I opened my mouth to ask again, he stood abruptly. The sound of his chair scraping against the floor ripped through me like a thunderclap. I have to go, he said, looking back once, eyes filled with a mixture of regret and urgency. The door swung shut behind him, closing off the light, leaving me in a murky haze of confusion. What was he hiding? Would I ever find the answers I so desperately yearned for? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I sat alone in the café, the remnants of my drink cooling in the bottom of the cup, my heart still racing from our brief encounter. The flickering lights overhead seemed to mock me, illuminating the confusion that clouded my mind. What had just happened? Who was he really? The weight of his urgent gaze lingered, and I could almost feel the warmth of his presence still wrapped around me, until it began to fade, replaced by a thickening sense of dread. I thought about the name Head mentioned, my brother's name. The memories crashed over me like waves in a storm, sharp and unforgiving. I had spent years searching for closure, and here was a hint dangling before me, only to be snatched away before I could grasp it. Just then, my phone vibrated across the table, pulling me from my spiraling thoughts. It was a message from my best friend, Tara. "Hey, just checking in. Lunch this week?" I tapped out a quick reply but felt hollow. Lunch seemed trivial now. After a moment's hesitation, I pushed my chair back, the sound reverberating through the café. I needed to breathe, to clear out the chaos swirling in my head. I stepped outside, the cool air wrapping around me like a balm. I needed to ground myself, regain control. That I walked aimlessly down the street, the autumn leaves swirling at my feet. Each rustle felt like a whisper, and the cool wind carried the distant echoes of laughter. It reminded me of the days I used to spend with my brother before everything fell apart. Shadows of his face danced through my thoughts, blurring into the present-day stranger who had ignited old wounds. I found myself at the small park nearby, benches littered around the walking paths. I settled on one, catching my breath. The view was lovely, children played and the sun peeked through the branches, illuminating the vibrant colors of the season. But it was as if my heart had draped a gray veil over the beauty surrounding me. Suddenly, a soft voice piped up next to me. "Do you mind if I sit?" I looked up, startled. A young girl, perhaps no more than 10, stood there with big brown eyes and an endearing gap-toothed smile. Sure, I managed, my heart warming slightly despite the turmoil inside me. She plopped down next to me and pulled a crumpled paper from her pocket. "I drew a picture for my mom," she said, beaming, her excitement infectious. She spread the drawing across the bench, and I leaned in to take a closer look. It was a colorful depiction of a small family, their faces bright and filled with joy. "Wow, this is beautiful. Your mom is going to love it," I said, feeling a smile break through my thoughts like sunlight piercing through clouds. "I hope so. She's been sad. But I thought if I gave her a picture, it would make her happy again," she said earnestly, her confidence shining through her innocence. "Sometimes a small gesture can mean the world," I replied, surprised by the depth of feeling behind my own words. I realized how powerful it was to connect with someone else at that moment, even in the simplest of ways. As we chatted, I could feel the weight on my heart lifting, if only just a little. The girl poured out tales of her adventures, her laughter weaving through the air, and for the first time since the stranger had walked into my life, I felt a glimmer of hope. But with that hope came a reminder of the journey ahead. The shadow of my brother lingered in the back of my mind, and the unanswered questions chased me like restless ghosts. I could feel the unresolved tension tightening in my chest again, a stark contrast to the warmth I felt from the girl's innocent companionship. Just as I was beginning to lose myself in the lightness of the moment, I glanced at my phone once more. A new message flashed across the screen, this time from an unknown number. "I know what you're looking for. Meet me at the old library at 8 tonight." My heart dropped, shock coursing through me. What did they know? I felt a swirling mix of anxiety and adrenaline zip through me. I turned to the girl, who was now collecting her drawing, naive to the turmoil brewing inside me. "Sometimes, you need to take a leap of faith," she said as she stood to leave, her words echoing hauntingly in my mind. I watched her go, unsure of what was brewing in the shadows. I was at a crossroads, facing a choice that could either bring me closer to the truth about my brother or plunge me deeper into the unknown. Hesitation gripped me as I glanced at the time. I had just hours left to unravel the mystery that had seeped into my life from that chance encounter. Would I take the leap, or let fear keep me grounded? The sun dipped lower in the sky as I sat on the park bench, the weight of the message still heavy on my shoulders. The kids' laughter and the rustling of leaves faded into a dull hum, a backdrop to the storm roaring in my head. Questions clashed against each other. Who sent that message? How did they know I was looking for my brother? As I replayed my recent meeting over and over, I couldn't ignore the small voice in my head that whispered this was the moment I'd been waiting for, a lead, a thread to pull me closer to the truth. I pulled my phone back out, staring at the message again, desperate to decipher it. The old librarian, ominous place filled with dust and cobwebs, history lingering within its walls. I hadn't set foot in there since childhood, memories of quiet corners and stacks of books flooding back. Once an escape, it now felt like a trap closing around me. But evolving doubts held me captive. What if the meeting offered nothing but heartbreak? What if I opened old wounds wider than ever before? I pushed myself off the bench, uncertainty mixed with determination. If I let this chance slip away, I'd be haunted by it forever. I started to walk home, the path familiar yet distorted as each step brought me closer to nightfall and the looming decision. Tara called as I navigated the bustling streets. "Hey! You sound off. What's going on?" Her voice was warm, inviting, and I could almost feel the softness of her concern wrap around me. I hesitated, thoughts swirling like the leaves around my feet. "Just stuff, I guess. I've got some things to figure out," I replied, my voice laced with nerves, hoping this vague admission would suffice. "You know I'm here if you need to talk. We could grab that lunch, like, right now." There was no escape from the gentle insistence of her friendship. "I can't. I really can't," I confessed, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. I knew I was shutting her out, but the urgency swirling with my desperation made it impossible to share. "Okay, but if you need anything, just call, all right?" There was an understanding in her voice that drove a fresh wave of guilt crashing over me. How many times had she reached out for me, willing to offer solace, while I stood here engulfed in shadows? "Yeah, I will," I promised, but I felt the lie settle between us. After we hung up, the weight I'd carried felt heavier. Maybe I was destined to face this alone. As I walked into my building, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back looked unlike my hollow eyes and a mask of resolve barely masking the vulnerability inside. I needed to steel myself for the meeting, to prepare for whichever truth awaited me at the library. The evening wore on slowly. I brewed a cup of tea, the steam rising like ephemeral hopes in the air, slipping away as quickly as they came. I forced myself to read the battered pages of a book, but my mind drifted every few sentences, towards the library, towards the stranger I had yet to understand, and everything that lay ahead. Anxiety clawed at my insides as the clock ticked forward, the hands moving with a persistence that felt cruel. At 7:30, I laced up my shoes and grabbed my jacket, my heart racing. 5 minutes before the meeting, I turned to leave my apartment when a knock echoed through the silence. I opened the door, but no one was there. Just as I began to dismiss it, as a trick of the mind or a figment of my worries, a folded piece of paper fluttered to the ground. Curiosity outweighed caution as I picked it up. The handwriting was neat, familiar in a way that made my breath hitch. "Trust the journey. I'm waiting. Don't be late." Confusion washed over me, so many questions. Who had written this? Was it someone I knew? My stomach twisted with dread and excitement as I glanced back at the clock. Time was running out, and so was my resolve. With the note clutched in my hand, I stepped out into the crisp night air. Each breath seemed to slice through the tension, and I walked with purpose toward the library. Streetlights blurred into streaks of brightness as I moved, the memory of the girl and her drawing sparking a flicker of hope. Could I find the answers I yearned for? Yet, as I reached the entrance of the old library, shadows loomed, thick with uncertainty. I paused, the door creaking open as if revealing the dark secrets inside. I felt exposed, a lone flicker of light in a cavernous darkness. Familiar footsteps echoed behind me. I spun around, heart leaping into my throat. It was him, the stranger who knew my brother's name. "I see you made it," he said, his voice steady, but the shadows danced behind his eyes. Before I could form a question, he pulled out an envelope from his pocket. "You need to see this," he said, handing it to me. I stood there, the air thick with tension, an emotional storm brewing just below the surface. Would this be the moment that unlocked everything? Or another step deeper into the nightmare of uncertainty? My heart raced as I opened it, the world around me blurring into oblivion. The contents would determine where my journey would take me next, but whatever awaited inside, something deep down warned me it would change everything. The library's dim light cast long shadows as I flipped through the envelope's contents, my hands trembling. Inside were faded photographs, old and yellowed with age. They depicted a boy, a young man, and finally a picture of him standing beside a girl who looked remarkably like me, smiling, carefree, unaware of the burdens that awaited. "Who are they?" I breathed, my voice barely a whisper, barely piercing the thick quiet. That he didn't answer right away, his gaze drifting to a distant corner of the library. "They are significant," he finally replied, each word heavy with meaning. "Your brother was intertwined with them, and they're part of the reason he what?" My frustration bubbled to the surface, and I took a step closer, demanding clarity. I couldn't afford ambiguity any longer. Every missed opportunity twisted further into my gut. He hesitated, looking as though he wrestled with revealing too much or too little. He vanished, but it was more than just that. His eyes cast downward, and I saw a flicker of emotion, deep-rooted in sadness. He was trying to escape, but not from you. A tidal wave of confusion crashed over me. Escape? From what? Why didn't he come back? Where did he go? Each question pierced through the silence, their urgency a chorus of desperation. He took a moment, as if gathering the fragments of a haunting story. "There are things you don't know, things that happened back then. Your brother was caught up in a world that became dangerous." There was an underlying tension in his words, and I could feel it like a weight pressing against my chest. My brother entangled in danger? The thought was unfathomable. I don't understand. "You think I'm going to just accept this?" "He wanted you to know. To remember." His voice softened, the rough edges of his earlier tone smoothing out, revealing a flicker of empathy. It caught me off guard amidst the swirling emotions. "He never stopped thinking about you, even when he had to make choices that pulled him away." A knot formed in my throat, realization creeping in like kudzu over the trees. My brother's absence was deeper than mere disappearance. He had been trapped in something dark, and perhaps just perhaps had developed his own fears of returning. I could feel tears stinging my eyes, a painful mix of love and loss welling up, threatening to overflow. I turned my gaze back to the photographs, tracing the outline of the girl who looked so much like me. "Who is she?" "Her name was Maya." They were part of something big, something dangerous, but they shared a bond that kept them tethered, until... He trailed off, the finality hanging ominously in the air. "Until what?" My heart raced, dread blooming alarmingly in my chest. "Until the day you lost him." A gentle reminder that felt like a knife twisting inside me, but amidst my spiraling emotions, hope fluttered once more. The connection between the past and present hinted at truths that could mend the long-held wound. "Maya," I whispered, letting her name linger, a breath of familiarity. "Is she still alive? Did my brother help her?" He looked at me, and for the first time, there was a warmth behind his gaze, a crude reassurance despite the chaos that surrounded us. "That's what you need to find out. There are those who can help, more than you think, but it won't be easy." I inhaled sharply, piecing together the fragments I'd been given. The library walls seemed to close in, the whispers of history echoing louder as anxiety pulsed through my veins. "Then we need to go," I said, desperation sharpening my resolve. But before he could respond, a loud crash reverberated from behind us, an echoing disruption that shattered the tense atmosphere. I spun around, heart racing. The heavy wooden door was thrown open, a gust of wind rushing in, carrying with it the chilling presence of someone. A tall figure cloaked in darkness entered, eyes scanning the room with an unsettling familiarity. My pulse quickened, dread inexplicably rising in my throat. "There you are," they said, a voice low and sinister. "You've been looking for answers, haven't you? Time's up." My heart thundered in my chest, my instinct screamed to run. But the stranger stood firmly by my side, defiance etched across his face. "You're too late. She's not going anywhere." This moment felt irreversible, a pivot between the path I had been searching for and the darkness that threatened to consume me whole. I could feel hope slipping through my fingers like grains of sand, caught between the urgency of the present and the specters of the past. "Let's go," he urged, his voice a steady anchor amid the chaos, but I hesitated, the weight of my choices crashing down upon me as the figure advanced, relentless. Would I continue chasing the remnants of my brother's life, or would I plunge into a deeper darkness that promised no return? All I knew was that the journey was just beginning, and with it, the stakes couldn't be higher. The tension in the room thickened, an oppressive fog that wrapped around us, drowning out any semblance of clarity. My mind raced, darting between the stranger's threat and the desperate search for my brother's truth. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, every instinct screaming for flight, but I felt rooted to the spot, an unwilling spectator in my own unfolding drama. Run! He urged, pulling me towards the door, but my feet felt glued to the ground, my eyes locked onto the figure stepping forward, a smirk dancing across their lips. The very air vibrated with unspoken histories, and I could sense that this stranger knew more than they were letting on. Do you think he can protect you? The cloaked figure taunted, their voice cutting through the air with a sharpness that made my skin prickle. You're playing with fire now, and it's only a matter of time before you get burned. No! I shouted, surprisingly confident and loud, breaking through the veil of fear that threatened to suffocate me. I need to understand this. I can't keep running away. The words were out before I could rein them in, a bold proclamation fueled by desperation but also an ember of newfound strength. The figure paused, a flicker of surprise crossing their shadowed features. How touching. But understanding doesn't always come without a price. I felt the presence of history around me, thrumming like a live wire. Maya, my brother, secrets buried beneath layers of time and denial. What do you know about Maya? I demanded, hoping to catch them off guard. Where is she? At the mention of her name, the smirk faltered. The figure's eyes narrowed, their demeanor shifting. You think knowing her will save you? She's a ghost of your brother's past, and ghosts never give you the answers you seek. My hope flickered like a fire struggling against the wind. I craved the truth, but I wasn't prepared to let it slip away. You're wrong. If I can find her, if I can piece together what happened, maybe just maybe I can bring him back. The fervor in my words caught the attention of my companion, and I could see the duality of concern and admiration in his eyes. You think you can play savior? This isn't a fairy tale, the figure hissed, stepping closer, the darkness around them almost palpable. You have no idea what you're up against. You're not just on a quest for answers, you're inviting danger into your life, willingly, yet behind the anxiety and apprehension, something else crept into me. Threads of hope began to weave through my heart. With the flicker of a flame, I stood my ground. Maybe the danger is worth it. I can't keep living in the shadow of my brother's absence. I owe it to him, to me, to search for the truth. Insolent, the figure spat, their eyes transforming into cold shards. It was a promise of confrontation, a challenge that electrified the air. If you're going to search for family, be prepared for the consequences. What consequences? I shot back, but inside, my heart tightened painfully, the weight of fear mingling with the blush of defiance. Before they could respond, another crash echoed. This time it didn't come from the door, but from the shelves themselves as a book flew off, landing at my feet. Instinctively, I bent down to pick it up, a beat of curiosity breaking through my fear. The cover was embossed with strange symbols, and as I opened it, a piece of paper slipped out, fluttering to the ground. I blinked, my breath hitching as I stared at the address scrawled across it. Where did you get that? The figure hissed, an edge of panic slicing through their composed facade. That's not for you. But before I could respond, my companion, fueled by urgency, gripped my arm. We need to go. Now the tension escalated, and the urgency of the moment propelled me forward, even as doubts invaded the sanctum of my thoughts. I glanced back one last time, locking eyes with the figure cloaked in darkness. Who are you? Why are you doing this? You'll understand soon enough, they replied, the threat lingering like smoke in the air. But remember, you have the option to turn back. Once you let this in, there will be no going back. With that parting shot, we bolted through the door, the cool air slapping my face as we stumbled onto the street. My heart pounded, racing alongside the chaos of my mind, the weight of the book heavy in my hands, an anchor tethered to the unknown. "Do you trust me?" my companion asked, glancing sideways as we raced down the dimly lit street, urgency tattooed across his features. I hesitated, grappling with the raw truth of our situation, feeling the crushing weight of my brother's absence drawing me onward. "I want to," I admitted, my voice breaking slightly. "I want to find my brother. I don't want to hurt anyone else." In the flicker of streetlight, I caught a glimpse of resolve in his eyes, a bond forming amidst the chaos threatening to engulf us. "I promise we'll find a way," he assured me as we rounded a corner, breathless and terrified, but as we raced away from the library, I couldn't shake the feeling of being chased by shadows, a darkness that preceded us, veiled in lost promises and echoing threats. The night stretched on, punctuated by adrenaline and uncertainty, and just as I turned my head back, I felt a chilling sense of dread wash over me, knowing that we weren't just racing against the clock, but against forces far more sinister, and with that unease tightening the air around us, I couldn't help but wonder if this journey would lead us to salvation or destruction, the answers nestled within shadows I had yet to uncover. The sound lingered in the air, twisting around us like smoke. It was faint but unmistakable, a name clinging to the surface of chaos. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, grappling with the disorientation while the world around me fell quiet, the footsteps of our pursuers fading into the distance. Somehow, that single word was powerful enough to drown out the rushing blood in my ears. "Maya." The voice belonged to a woman, her tone rich with an intoxicating mixture of desperation and hope. Without thinking, I stepped forward, unaware of what awaited as I sought the source of that name, Maya. She called again, and the urgency in her voice ignited a spark of familiarity, something half-remembered from my childhood. I exchanged a glance with my companion, who watched me with a mix of caution and confusion, unsure if this was a trap or a beacon. "I think it's her," I whispered, the conviction in my heart battling the dread knotting my stomach. The shadows loomed closer, thickening the air as I took a breath, pushing deeper into the alley. Rounding a corner, I abruptly came face to face with a woman cloaked in tattered layers, her hair wild and eyes filled with a frantic light. There was an undeniable pull. She bore an unmistakable resemblance to the Maya I once knew, alive in me as a specter from childhood, a ghost trembling under the weight of memories. "Who?" Her voice trembled but did not falter. "Who are you? What do you want?" Before I could answer, her gaze fell to the book clutched in my hands, and panic flickered in her expression. "You shouldn't have that," she hissed, her fear morphing into urgency. "We need to go, now, but I'm looking for you." I stammered, the thrill of her familiarity mixing with an overwhelming need to understand. "You were close to my brother Vincent." "He your brother?" She interrupted, her composure cracking for a fleeting moment. "He shouldn't have. It's too dangerous. They'll find you both if they know you're in the city." "Who's they?" my companion cut in, stepping forward with equal parts anger and protection. "What do you know?" Her eyes darted between us, lightning fast like a striking serpent. "More than I'd like. You're both in grave danger, and I'm not sure I can protect you." We need to leave. Just then, the shadows shifted, and the ominous presence of our pursuers crept back onto the scene. My heart raced as I caught sight of their figures growing bolder, their silhouettes now illuminated under the dim streetlights. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Maya's wrist and pulling her toward the narrow opening I'd just emerged from. There wasn't room for hesitation now. We had no choice but to escape. We dashed through winding alleys and shadowy streets, with panic propelling us forward. Maya's breath came in sharp gasps, but I didn't dare look back. I could feel her tension coiling against me, thick and palpable. "I shouldn't be doing this. You don't know what you're getting into," she yelled over the din of our pounding footsteps. "I don't care." I called back, my resolve hardening with every syllable. "I just want the truth about my brother, about you, about everything." Through the labyrinth of twisting pathways, something flickered through my memory of shared laughs and carefree summer days spent in the sunlight, unburdened by shadows. But none of us were those naive children anymore. The reality was that everything had changed, and danger lurked around every corner. At last, We reached the edge of a hidden courtyard, its run-down architecture offering a momentary reprieve from the chaos. I pressed against a wall, my chest heaving as I attempted to catch my breath. "Who are you?" Maya asked again, her voice a low tremor mixed with awe and fear. "Why did you come for me?" "I don't know," I admitted, the emotions crashing around me like waves against a cliff. "I guess I thought maybe finding you would bring me closer to understanding why Vincent had to leave." "What did you see?" She pressed, her eyes widening, igniting a flicker of something ancient and unyielding in me. "In his notes in the book, it was a message warning about people who are after you. Maybe even after me," I stammered, the weight of our shared peril pulling us closer. "But I don't want to believe that anyone would hurt you. I need to know you're safe." Her gaze softened for a brief moment, stirring echoes of our shared past as an uneasy wave of trust washed over us. "You don't know what they're capable of," she murmured. Then, her expression hardened as a shadow passed through the courtyard entrance, sending us both scrambling to hide behind a pile of discarded crates, waiting in suffocating silence. Each heartbeat was an echo of every fear unspoken, every truth left unacknowledged. Maya looked at me, the haunting shadows of doubt reflected in her eyes, and I felt my heart drop. "They're getting closer," she whispered. "You need to trust me, or this will end badly for all of us." My throat tightened, the gravity of her words settling heavily. I nodded, nerves twisting inside me as I wrestled with the reality that my search for the truth was pulling me deeper into a web of danger. Before I could respond, something shocking. A Karita shadowy figure stepped into the light, and in that moment of terrifying clarity, I recognized the face. Maya gasped, her hand clutching mine as recognition turned into pure fear. "No, it can't be as my heart stuttered to a stop, all thoughts slipped away. The truth I sought had just stepped back into my life, but it was not the comforting embrace of certainty, it was the harbinger of chaos, looming larger in the gathering gloom. "Maya," the figure said, voice low and familiar, "it's time to come home." The shadows deepened around us, swirling like a tempest as the figure rushed closer, urgency palpable in every hurried step. I recognized the desperate face that had once brought comfort in a world filled with noise. It was Lila, Maya's long-lost childhood friend who had vanished into the ether like a wisp of smoke. The kind of bond forged in innocence had somehow survived the weight of time and tears, and now she stood before us, eyes wide with terror. "Lila," Maya breathed, a flicker of hope piercing the dark fog surrounding our moment. "Get away from him," Gil barked, assuming an aggressive stance. He seemed to remember the dichotomy of safety and danger all too well, torn between wanting to shield Maya and acknowledging the past that now resurfaced. No. Lila shot back, a spark igniting in her dark brown eyes. "You don't understand. I've been searching for you." Maya's hand instinctively clutched mine, and I felt the tension seep into my bones. "What do you mean you've been searching for me?" Maya asked, voice shaking under the weight of uncertainty. Old layers of time unraveling between us, it felt as though both of their pasts mingled, colliding with fierce abandon. Lila took a deep breath, urgency still coursing through her veins. "I know what they want, Maya. I overheard them discussing it. We need to leave now. They're coming. They've been looking for you ever since." She faltered, almost too scared to finish. My heart thundered, instinct demanding I protect Maya at all costs. "What do they want?" I demanded, drawing Lila's gaze to me, trying to anchor the chaos swirling in the dark. "They think you're a key," Lila rushed to explain, "to something ancient, something powerful. Your existence isn't just a coincidence. You're part of something greater." Maya paled, and her grip tightened on my hand like a vice. "What do you mean? How can that be? I'm just me." The desperate uncertainty in her voice clawed at my core, each word echoing with a haunting disbelief. No. Gil interjected, his tone urgent enough to force focus amidst the rising tide of anxiety. "You've always been more than that, you just don't know it yet. And every moment you spend here puts you at risk." "We can't leave," Maya said, staring at Lila. "I won't just run away again. Every time I do, I leave people behind." Her defiance, though admirable, left the very air thick with tension. I felt my heart quaver as the unsaid words lingered. "Running away isn't the answer," I murmured, my own voice laced with desperation, understanding her pain all too well. "But standing still might be worse." "Maya," Lila pleaded, her voice soft but urgent. "We don't have time to figure this out. You either trust me or you don't. But if you stay," she glanced over her shoulder, the shadows lurking like predators just waiting for the right moment to pounce, "you'll never find out who you are meant to be." Suddenly, the energy shifted as the distant echoes of footsteps grew louder, more insistent. They were drawing closer, a chorus of threats advancing under the cover of darkness. The desperation clawed at my throat, pushing me to make a choice. "Choose, Maya," I said, feeling every heartbeat reverberate like an urgent drum. "We need to find a way out, or we'll be swallowed whole by whatever is coming for you." She looked at me, confusion clouding her expression. "I don't want to leave." "Leaving doesn't mean you're abandoning everyone," I urged gently, remembering just in time the burden she carried. "You have to survive first. You owe it to yourself to unearth what's hidden within you." With a sudden brightness, Lila gripped Maya's shoulders, a jolt coursing between them. "You deserve to understand your own story, Maya. Without knowing, you'll always be a pawn in someone else's game. And I'll stay by your side." The shadows inched closer, their looming presence palpable, and the heavy air pressed down on us like a weight we couldn't ignore any longer. "You have to decide, Maya," I pushed softly, my voice breaking yet resolute. "Trust in the light of our friendship, or surrender to the darkness that seeks to bind you," just as she seemed to wrestle with her thoughts. A guttural roar erupted behind us, shattering the fragile moment and sending a bolt of trepidation straight through my heart. The chassis' desperate race away from potential doom suddenly felt imminent. "Maya!" Gil called, a note of panic rising in his voice. "We need to move." Her gaze darted between the two of us, each decision a thorny path filled with potential loss and grief. I felt her body shake beside mine, the weight of indecision crushing her spirit. "Will you come with me?" she whispered to Lila, vulnerability spilling through her defenses. "Yes. Always." Lila replied, a fierce light igniting in her eyes. I felt as though my world hinged on the precipice of Maya's choice, a final solitary moment split between the past's pull and a potential future shrouded in uncertainty. But before she could answer, figures emerged from the blackness, their silhouettes sharp against the thin moonlight. "Maya. We have to go." I grasped her hand tighter, willing her to feel the undying bond between us, just as shadows began to engulf reality, racing toward us like an inevitable storm. That moment, the decision still hovering in the air, remained unfinished, as did the fate that lay just beyond our reach. And as we took that first step into the darkness, I realized that the life-altering threads of our destinies were now unraveled, leaving us suspended on a precipice of peril and promise, ready to leap into the unknown. The shadows around us twisted with an urgency that matched the frantic beating of my heart. As Maya looked back and forth between Lila and me, the gravity of her decision bore down like a heavy cloak, suffocating in its intensity. I thought of the years of searching, the aching absence of my brother, and how this moment held the potential to either break us or finally set us free. "Trust me," I urged, desperation lacing my voice. "We can't let fear dictate our choices. We have to choose hope, choose life." Maya's eyes glistened with uncertainty, and I desperately willed her to see the truth woven within my plea. Fear had held her back for too long. Suddenly, the rattle of footsteps echoed ominously from the alley's mouth, forcing us to confront the reality of the looming danger. The figures were closer than ever, shadows coalescing into outlines that promised devastation. Our time was slipping away, and my heart raced as I realized how intertwined our fates had become. "Maya, please," Lila implored, her voice quivering but resolute. "We need to leave now. I've only just found you again, and I can't lose you like before. You have to remember who you are." Maya hesitated, clenching her fists at her sides, wrestling with the weight of the choice. Just as the shadows drew nearer, the shadows of our past seemed to swirl around us, whispering truths that had long been buried in silence and fear. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice a mere whisper. What if I don't know how to come back? In that moment, something shifted within me, a sense of clarity and understanding. I reached out, taking her hands in mine, feeling the warmth of her heart against my palms. You're not meant to return to what you once were, Maya. You're meant to become who you've always been on the inside. This is your moment to reclaim your story. With every word, I felt a fierce surge of hope coursing between us, igniting the darkness with a flicker of defiance. I could see her resolve beginning to crystallize, the hesitant flame of courage flickering back to life. Without warning, the shadows exploded into chaos as figures barreled into the courtyard, their intentions now clear and unforgiving. I felt a surge of adrenaline jet through my veins. Now! We have to go! I exclaimed, grabbing Maya's wrist. We turned to flee, urgency propelling our steps, yet, just before we reached the exit, I felt a forceful grip on my shoulder, wrenching me back and pulling me away from Maya's safety. You think you can just run away? The voice hissed, sending chills down my spine. I met the eyes of the figure who had haunted my thoughts, their intent piercing like a knife. Maya. I yelled, desperation clawing at my throat. But before Lila or Maya could react, Gil surged forward with an unexpected fierceness, pushing Lila to the side just as the figure aimed to draw me into their depths of darkness. Stay close to Maya, he shouted as he grappled with the aggressor. Amid the chaos, the shadows melted into an unruly tempest, forcing us into an unpredictable dance. I grasped Maya's hand tightly, refusing to let go. Run! I urged her, pulling her towards the alleyway. The sound of chaos erupted behind us, houts, hurried footsteps echoing, chaos reaching a fever pitch. As we burst into the alley, I took a moment to ensure Lila was right behind us. Together, we sprinted into the night, guided only by the primal urge to escape the suffocating darkness clawing at our heels. But even as we ran, a single thought pierced the clamor of noise surrounding us. Each step we took was a step away from our old lives and deeper into the unknown. This was a leap of faith, a choice made not out of recklessness but of determination. Maya, you're strong, I breathed, realizing as much for myself as for her. You can face whatever comes next. We have each other. The lights from the street signs blurred, the world dissolving into a haze of colors and sounds, a beautiful chaos full of potential and promise that awaited just around the corner. It felt terrifying and inspiring all at once, but just as we turned onto a side street, I felt a sudden shift in our momentum. Maya pulled on my arm to stop, her eyes wide with realization. Wait! She gasped, catching her breath. I turned to her, confusion washing over me. What's wrong? I need to know the truth about Vincent, she said with a sudden clarity, a fierce determination surging in her features. I can't run from the past and leave his fate unknown. Before I could protest, she spun to face the street, eyes locked on the distance. There was an unyielding light deep within her, an ember of strength awakening. Just then, Lila caught up, her breathless presence shining alongside Maya's resolute stance. You're right, we can't keep running forever. There's something bigger here, and we need to confront it together, she urged, glancing between us and the path stretching ahead. In that moment, I felt the bond between us pulse with a rare intensity, alive with history, hope, and shared burdens. We had chased shadows, but it was time to step into the light of truth, no matter how painful it might be. Let's find out what really happened, I finally agreed, a rush of affirmation spiraling through me. Together. With renewed purpose, we turned back towards the darkness we had fled, ready to unearth the secrets that entwined our futures. As we stepped forward, the weight of uncertainty slipped slightly, replaced with the knowledge that together, we could face the shadows and emerge unbroken. And then, as if the universe had conspired to reveal its final truth, a figure stepped into view at the end of the street, an outline cloaked in a familiar silhouette. My heart stopped. Vincent, I whispered, the reality of the moment crashing upon me like waves against jagged rocks. Maya's eyes widened, the truth crashing down around us as we braced ourselves to confront everything we had ever fought against, every secret lurking in the shadows. Do you really have the courage to face your past? He asked softly, the distance between us slipping away like sand through fingers. In the depths of my soul, I felt the answer rising to the surface, clear and unmistakable. We were ready to confront the haunting past, find the threads of our destiny, and discover the truth. And as my heart beat in sync with Maya's resolute gaze, I realized that sometimes, forging a path through darkness was the only way to find the light again. Every twist and turn would lead us to the ultimate revelation, the acceptance of our bond, and the promise of healing. Together, I whispered, stepping into the unknown. As we ventured forward, a sense of profound clarity washed over me, igniting every part of my being. For tonight was not just a step into the darkness, it was the beginning of a journey toward a brighter tomorrow, a promise made in our hearts that we would not waver, that we would rise from the ashes of what had once held us captive. With one final look back, I felt a sense of weight lift. We were rewriting our stories now, no longer shackled by past pains but soaring towards the truth that awaited us with open arms. In that moment, as the shadows stretched behind us, my heart whispered the powerful truth: sometimes, to find your way home, you must first be willing to lose everything.